You know, I really don't mind wearing a face mask, but this lipstick shade looks great on me, and it is a crime that nobody out in the world is going to see me in it. Also a crime is whatever's like happening with this, but it's super humid. Not a whole lot I can do about that. Anyway, speaking of masks, I didn't think through this segue. Hi friends, I'm Bex, and as of the moment I am here talking, my first video about my autism diagnosis has more than 800 views, which is pretty wild. I know it's not wild in the realm of YouTube, but for me, like on a personal level, that's a lot of people who have watched and listened to me talk, so that's not insignificant. I wanted to film an update because it's been a few months and I have been exploring what that diagnosis means for me, because obviously at the time I had some ideas about what it meant, but now that I've actually like been moving through the world as like an autistic person, knowing I am an autistic person, there have been some interesting developments, I guess. Before I get into it, I again just want to emphasize that I'm one person speaking about my experience. When I started this YouTube channel, I never thought that this was going to be part of it, but it is still going it is going to be part of it, just because that's how it worked out. And there are some people who seem to, for whatever reason, care about what I have to say about autism, but I'm not trying to like label myself as an advocate or an educator. There are a lot of great folks already doing that work. I am just speaking about my experience personally. Experiences among autistics are varied. Please just, if you can relate to any of this, then I hope it's helpful. Anything that's not helpful, just, leave it. And I hope that you are able to glean or learn something from what I'm talking about. But again, I've made a playlist that includes whatever autism related content I'm going to upload, and also some videos that I've watched recently that have been helpful, that are I guess good to like supplement my videos with, because like I said, I'm one person talking about my experience. I am a white cis woman. I understand that my experience in some ways is narrow. So again, if there's anything that doesn't line up with your experience, that is completely fine. And I would love for you to share more about your perspective in the comments, or if you're interested in doing that. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get into it. When I got my autism diagnosis at the end of March, I was so excited, and I think the main source of that excitement was sort of like, oh, I like don't have to pretend anymore. I know who I am and I can be who I am. I don't have to mask anymore. And great. But then, once the dust settles, once the dust settled, came around to like, okay, what does that mean though? What exactly does that mean for me? I talked a little bit about stimming in my first video, but basically it comes down to masking autistic traits or suppressing autistic traits. Masking or camouflaging kind of like gets the point across, but there was this post by Autistic Typing that I thought was a really good way of putting it. The connotation is that we are intentionally hiding, they write, as if there's something shameful that and that we shouldn't be seen. It sounds like we're being fake, inauthentic, or trying to fool others. When autistics put on the mask, it is a neuronormative performance, and it is not for our benefit. The performance is to appease everyone around us. And I thought the idea of a performance was really on point, because sometimes after I've masked for, let's say, like 4 hours, I feel like I've been in a like 4-hour play. That's how tired I am. One of the issues with being diagnosed as an adult is I've spent so long doing so much masking that sometimes it's hard for me to identify when I am masking or what parts of me are masking, because it's just I've been this way for as long as I can remember. And I would say that now that I know I'm autistic, I'm kind of on a journey to unmask myself. But it's really hard to do that when I've been doing it for like almost 3 decades. How am I supposed to stop, or to know how to stop? We all have, I guess we all have moments where we have to, or we feel at least we have to adjust our behavior based on the situation. Like, I hear the phrase customer service mode or customer service voice a lot. And that just means that you like turn on kind of a different part of yourself when you're at work, for example, because the way you might normally respond to, say, a rude person in life is going to be very different when you have to represent a company or something like that. I look back on my childhood and I think about the kinds of things that made me like seen as well behaved by like teachers and authority figures. And one of the things was like teachers always said like how focused I always was. Like I was so like always like eyes to the front of class, like very just like hyper focused on them, or so they thought. I knew how to do this from a young age because guess what? Adults tell you what good listening body language looks like. So I knew I could plant my feet, I could sit up straight, and I could look at the front of the class, and that would seem like I was listening even if I wasn't. And even that took a lot out of me. And even though school was kind of a lifeline in some ways because it was like structured and it was a routine, I was suffering the whole time. And people didn't know because, say, like after grade 1, I was like the perfect student most of the time because I knew how to act. Because as long, like, you tell me, you give me directions, you give me a set of rules, like, I'm pretty sure I could build a rocket ship if you were able to step by step explain it to me clearly. I could do it. I could do anything if you tell me how to do it. But a lot of the times, like, especially as an adult, you don't get that kind of instruction. So that was something I carried with me. And it's kind of sad because I think about times when maybe times I wasn't doing that. I got called out if I looked like I was spacing out or something. Teachers would embarrass you, or would embarrass me and like say something about it, despite the fact that I, wasn't being disruptive, which what qualifies as disruptive behavior, that's a whole other thing. I won't get into it because I could go on a whole rant about the way neurodivergent kids are treated in school. But I wasn't even like, it's not even like I was doing anything that traditionally would be seen as bad behavior. But because I wasn't doing that thing, then that's like, oh, this is something to be punished. This is something to be reprimanded. And my God, no wonder I was exhausted. And some days I would just turn that on and I'd be like, I'll have to go and figure out what this lesson was about later, because I cannot do this. I cannot go into this mode and focus on what is being said at the same time. That was autism. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I don't know if I'll be going back to school again. I have a master's now, but my God. Like, there's not a lot I can do about it to like fix that or be like, oh, next time I won't like push myself to do this. So I'm trying to figure out what other parts of me like are kind of fall into the same category, and what am I unnecessarily expending my energy on when I could just, not be masking. It's really sad because masking is like a survival tactic, I feel, for a lot of people, whether that's, surviving, like, let's say, like, surviving high school, like surviving that socially and emotionally, or in some cases, especially if you're in like another marginalized group, literal survival. Like, if a cop sees you acting autistic, me as a white person, I'm perhaps not going to get shot, but somebody else might. So it's really frustrating and sad that in order to go about the world, so many of us have to like put on this performance and put on this show. And I don't want to do it anymore. I had this really great moment the other day when I was walking to work, to my part-time job. I was walking and a vehicle kind of blew through a crosswalk in front of me. I didn't get hit, obviously. I was fine, but after that I was sort of on edge. And when I'm stressed, that is when the mask kind of starts to come down involuntarily, because it's harder to like focus on that and focus on like keeping myself calm. And I was listening to music. I was listening to Ribs by Lorde, which is a very, if you've heard it, like it's a very like catchy, like the beat is very intoxicating. And after that happened, I was like, okay. And then kept walking, and I like started stimming, like doing this. And then as I rounded the corner, I saw in the distance this older couple walking towards me. And my first instinct was to stop. And then I was like, wait a sec. What, is it really gonna ruin their day if they have to walk by somebody doing this? Is that really gonna be like a problem for them? Is that going to impact them horribly, traumatize them emotionally? No. So I just kept doing it. And I did that like the rest of my way to work pretty much, because and it was really soothing. It was like, and I feel like I was probably arrived to work in a better mood than I would have had I forced myself to stop. And that's just a really small example. I'm still kind of figuring out the bigger ones. There are also, situations where I still don't feel like really safe being like my full self, which is unfortunate. I feel like in certain work situations that just wouldn't work, just because I know how people are. And also just certain like relatives and stuff, I feel like just wouldn't really get it, and I wouldn't rather mask, but it's sort of like a matter of choosing like which like do I deal with whatever somebody's reaction is going to be, or do I deal with the like potential, shutdowns that comes after having to mask for a few hours. And I guess like things like stimming is sort of, I guess, the easiest one to kind of get away with. Occasionally I've been called out on stimming, like, what are you doing? But like stuff like this is another big one for me. Sometimes both hands. My voice sounds funny when I do that. Just objects. Vocal stems are more difficult because people will be like, what are you saying? Like for example, if I see, like, say I saw a cat like 2 minutes ago and then I'm thinking about it again, I'll be like, kitty, 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 or something like that. Somebody will be like, what? Or I'll be thinking about something, I meow. Not necessarily related to seeing a kitty. I will meow occasionally. Beep boop beep boop beep. That's kind of the droid vocal stem that I do. So vocal stems are like a bit harder because I don't always want to explain. Like even my husband's kind of sometimes like he's one of the few people I'll do that in front of, and he sometimes is like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm just like, no, I'm just chilling. And yeah, so some stim sometimes, and some places are easier to deal with than others. All this to say, I'm still kind of figuring this out and what unmasking myself means and what it will mean going forward. It might be easier to figure out if the psychologist who diagnosed me would, send me the paper report. Still haven't gotten that yet. I followed up last month, and it was like, oh, the like admin person was like, I'll see if I can get an update for you. Never gave me one. And then the other day I emailed again, and if I don't hear back from them, you know what? They should be afraid, because I'm going to follow up. I will follow them up into the ground. You think you can hide from me? No, I will send an email saying, hello, just following up on this again. I will do it. I'll do it every 2 weeks if I have to. Yeah. This video was not as organized as I had perhaps hoped, but a lot's just going on personally right now outside of this even, and I just kind of, I don't know, my brain is all over the place more so than usual. That being said, I will link some resources in the description, things related to like masking, diagnoses, all that kind of stuff that I find helpful that you might find helpful. I'm also going to include some information about StopTheShock. The FDA had banned the use of electric shock devices to modify the behavior of autistic and developmentally disabled people. But that decision was overturned because it was decided that was outside the FDA's jurisdiction. So there is a school in the US that uses electric shocks to modify the behavior of autistic and developmentally disabled students. A lot of the students are Black and Hispanic, and since it is now legal again, they're doing it again, and it's it's really horrifying and difficult to read about. Some of the sources I'm including, like the action items, are really focused on the US because that's where you can actually like connect with people politically. And I feel like outside of that, it's a little bit difficult to have like tangible influence. But I still think it's important to know what's happening and to educate others about it. Feels weird to talk about plugging my channel after that, so I would just say, whether you subscribe or not, please educate yourself on what is happening, because it's just, I don't want to say I can't believe it, because I can absolutely believe it, but it's just another one of those things where it's like, oh, we haven't come as far as maybe we would have liked to believe. If there's anything you would like me to speak about in the future, whether that's like autism related content or not, comment, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.